I want you to imagine a crowded room. It could be a networking event, a family gathering, a party. People are laughing, having a good time, introducing themselves to new people. Most seem completely comfortable. But then there's one person who isn't. They're standing at the edge of the room, watching all of the conversations happening around them, not quite sure how to fit in. Now, I've always noticed that person, and so I'll go over, I'll start a conversation, or I'll simply just make them feel welcome. Because nobody should feel alone in a room full of people. Over the years, I've come to the realization that feeling unseen is far more common than we might think. Government statistics report that in 2026, over 1 million young people in the UK are currently not in employment, education or training. And before becoming a journalist, I spent 14 years working with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. The refugee trying to rebuild their life after unimaginable circumstances. The homeless young person dealing with substance abuse issues. Or the young person dealing with the challenges of growing up in the care system. Despite very different stories, they all had one thing in common. They felt as though they didn't belong. They often felt overlooked, misunderstood, or disconnected from the world around them. Now, a sense of belonging is considered one of our most fundamental psychological needs. And researchers define belonging as the extent to which a person feels valued, accepted, and included by those around them. Now, research has shown that those with a lower sense of belonging are more likely to experience depressive symptoms. They are more likely to suffer with suicidal thoughts, or worse, suicidal attempts. The Samaritans report that every year in the UK, 6,000 people take their own life. And while suicide is complex and is never caused by one single factor, belonging and social connection has been consistently identified as strong protective factors. Think about that for a moment. Something as simple as feeling valued, feeling like you matter to somebody, can have a profound impact on a person's life. Now, this lesson has always resonated with me because I've seen it play out in real life. Time and time again, I have witnessed young people begin to change when somebody genuinely listened to them, when somebody made them feel like they mattered. Now, this lesson has also followed me into journalism. I originally thought that good journalism was about asking the right questions. It is. But great journalism is about listening, really listening. Recently, I have spent a lot of time interviewing fighters. Fighters from the boxing, the unlicensed boxing, and the bare knuckle boxing scene. Now, for those new to the sport, bare knuckle is gruesome and somewhat brutal, involving fighters competing without gloves in what always ends up in injury and a bloodbath. I have now interviewed over 100 fighters, and despite all of those conversations being very different, one observation continued to stand out. Every fighter that I have interviewed has experienced some form of significant trauma in their life. Some talked about addiction, others homelessness, others bereavement, incarceration, PTSD, or difficult childhood experiences that continue to impact them in adult life. After all of those conversations, I kept hearing the same phrase: fighting saved my life. Some said it kept them out of prison. Others said it kept them away from drugs and alcohol. And some fighters told me that they genuinely did not think that they would still be alive had they not found fighting. At first, it seemed quite obvious what they meant. But the more I listened, the more I realized the story wasn't even about fighting. When fighters described what had saved them, they didn't talk about learning combinations. They talked about having direction, a sense of purpose, finally being surrounded by people who genuinely believed in them. What's interesting is that the story was never about fighting. It was about belonging. It was the same lesson that I had witnessed in all of those years working with those young people, whether I was speaking to a refugee rebuilding their life, or a homeless young person sleeping on their friend's sofa, or a fighter preparing for a bout. They were all seeking the same thing: connection, for a place where they knew that they belonged. Now, what's fascinating is that we often overlook this because of the way that our brains work. Psychologists talk about unconscious bias. They say that our brains make unconscious associations and judgments. Our limbic system in our brain forms patterns. Our brain takes shortcuts, which is useful to an extent, but it often makes us stop seeing the full person in front of us. We place labels on people. The fighter becomes a stereotype. The homeless young person becomes a statistic. The quiet person standing alone in the corner of a room becomes somebody we never speak to. After 14 years of working with disadvantaged young people, and after countless conversations with some of the toughest people I have ever met, I have come to one simple conclusion. Everybody is fighting a battle that we cannot see. And while some battles are obvious, others aren't. Which is why I believe one of the most powerful things that you can do for somebody is to make them feel seen. And so the next time you're standing in a room and you notice that quiet person standing in the corner, go and speak to them and listen. Truly listen. Thank you.